So, a fresh new week has arrived, and here on this channel, that means one thing and one thing only. Every weekend, I post an episode of the series we do called Your Take Not Mine, where I turn to you, the viewers, to give me your hottest NBA takes of the week, based on what's going on at the time, and I then choose my favorite submissions and discuss them in a video. This week, March Madness officially got underway, so we've been watching some of the next generation of talent perform on the big stage, and while some players have been helping their draft stock, others have taken a bit of a hit, so we definitely have plenty to discuss. In order to submit your takes, I make a community post on either the day of or the day before the video, similar to the one that you see on your screen now. So if you want a chance to be featured in a future episode, be sure to stay on the lookout for that. Before we start though, I want to thank PrizePicks for sponsoring today's video. PrizePicks is a skill-based, real money daily fantasy sports game where you select 2 to 6 players and guess if they will hit more or less than their projection. And if you get it right, you can win. Plus, with their new Demons and Goblins lines, you can now win up to 100 times your original entry. Obviously, we're all basketball fans here, but PrizePicks has almost every sport you can think of available to choose from and play. To add to the fun, they also offer frequent bonuses, discounts, and weekly promotions, such as Taco Tuesday and Flex Friday, plus so many more specialty free spaces to watch for throughout the year, so you don't want to miss those. For today's slate of games, I'm going with Steph Curry to score over 25 points, Darius Garland to score over 19.5 points, and Brook Lopez to make over 0.3s in this week's entry. To sign up, go down to the link in the description and use promo code REFERENCE when you sign up to get a deposit match bonus of up to $100. Once again, thank you to PrizePicks for sponsoring the video. Now let's get back to the topic at hand. The first take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Lucidity, and he says that Jalen Green has become the best player from the 2021 NBA draft class. Jalen Green's career has had more ups and downs than a roller coaster at this point, and has easily become the most polarizing player from the 2021 NBA draft class. He was the first top prospect to get drafted from the G League Ignite program that will actually be shutting down this season, unfortunately, so that probably came with a lot of extra pressure to validate that avenue, and game to game, it's been really tough to know what to expect from Green through 3 seasons. He was taken second overall because the allure with him was that he was expected to be the best and most talented scorer in the class. Green has always had a natural knack for getting buckets that very few others do, and he's shown it countless times over the last 3 years, but his issue has always been about doing it on a consistent basis and doing so efficiently. Before he turned 21 years old, he scored 30 points in more games than all but 5 players in NBA history ever at that age, and once he gets going, he has that microwave ability where everything he takes seems like it's gonna go in, but then in the same breath, he can come back the next game and shoot the Rockets out of it, taking terrible low-quality shots, and all of that is shown in his shooting splits that have pretty much stayed the same since his rookie year in all 3 seasons, which isn't great because they're just 42% from the field and 33% from 3. This year started even more disappointing when his scoring production took a hit early on, coincidentally, in the first year that the Rockets actually came in with some expectations of winning games, and the noise about him not being a winning player started to grow louder. However, over the last 3 weeks, Green has been one of the hottest players in the entire NBA, scoring 28 points per game in that stretch on red-hot shooting splits of 50% from the field and 42% from 3, which is why a take like this is even popping up. I think the most frustrating thing about Green, for even his biggest fans, is that it's so abundantly clear that he has this kind of talent in him. We just want to see him put it all together more regularly, because on the season as a whole, he's only scoring 19 points per game. When he's at his best, he can absolutely make a case for being the best player in the 2021 draft class, but we need him to put it all together for more than just a 3-week stretch before the claims gain any real merit. Right now, the 2021 class has Scotty Barnes, who was already named an All-Star, Evan Mobley is an All-Defense guy, Cade Cunningham has been way more consistent across the board than Green, and a ton of other quality talent throughout the draft as well, so Green still has a ways to go to get there. The next take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Mr. NBA, and he says that this year's draft class is getting way too much hate and is actually going to prove to be one of the deeper classes in recent memory. Anywhere you look regarding any kind of discussion about this year's draft class, you see countless comments calling it one of the weakest draft classes they've ever seen. The top comment on any YouTube video about the draft, including my mock draft videos, call it that, and common talking points on social media are calling it that. Yet, I'm not so sure I'm buying into that narrative. I think there are two main reasons why people feel this way. The first reason is that there isn't a clear-cut superstar talent at the top viewed as the prize of the draft like there was last year with Victor Wembanyama, and the other reason is because a lot of the top prospects aren't even college prospects coming from overseas. So the average basketball fan hasn't watched them nearly as much as they've watched other top prospects from prior years. When there's more unknown amongst the average fan, there's more inclination to write it off. But we've seen classes of the past get labeled as weak before, only for countless premier talents to blossom from them. For example, the 2013 NBA draft I remember was being called very weak at the time, because there was no clear top prospect. And while the number one pick that year, Anthony Bennett, did end up being one of the biggest busts of all time, unfortunately, that class still produced a ton of top talent, such as Giannis Antetokounmpo, Rudy Gobert, Victor Oladipo, and CJ McCollum, amongst others. This year's class gives off a similar vibe, where we may see a player bust in a big way, unfortunately, but there will be countless productive players drafted throughout in the long run. And finally, the last take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Arctic, and he says that Victor Wembanyama is already a top 10 player in the NBA. The further into the season we get, the more obvious it becomes that Victor Wembanyama is the real deal, and if you're still in denial about it, you come off as a bit delusional. He may have just turned 20 years old, but he's doing things on the basketball court we've only seen by a small handful of players ever, so now the question has inevitably become, just how good is he actually? I'll start off by saying that Wemby will probably be the best player in the league within the next 5 years, but that's not the question here. How good is he right now? Starting with the good, he's putting up about 21 points and 10 rebounds per game, while also leading the entire NBA in blocks per game. Defensively, he's been a turnover-generating machine, and in the paint, he's amongst the league leaders in defended field goal percentage. Now for the bad, he's committing more turnovers per game than he is dishing assists. He's shooting 46% from the field and 32% from 3, which for a stretch big is definitely subpar, and while the Spurs as a whole are lacking in talent, he isn't at the level where he can carry them to wins yet, as they are in last place in the Western Conference. Right now, as things currently stand, I'd feel comfortable labeling him as a top 20 player because of his absurd individual production on both ends of the floor, but the top 10 is typically reserved for guys who are producing at the highest level and leading their teams to the playoffs, and Wemby is not there yet. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about the takes discussed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.